viewers, today we shall study a great and interesting novel written by William Golding titled The Lord of Flies. Before we go into the details of this novel, let us try to know a little more about the author. William Golding was born in Cornwall, a small town in England, on September 19, 1911. The writing skills were inherent and he showed a deep interest in writing novels when he was just 5 years old. His parents inspired him to go for natural sciences, which he tried to study for some time, but he shifted his focus to English literature, which he completed from Oxford. He worked as a school teacher till 1940 and displayed the literary streak. In 1940, a year after England entered World War II, Golding joined the Royal Navy. Golding's experiences in World War II proved to be a great platform to understand humanity and evils of war. After the Second World War, he continued with teaching and writing novels, and he wrote this novel, The Lord of Flies, which proved to be a great success both in Britain and in the United States. The successful sales gave him financial stability. He retired from teaching and contributed in the form of novels to the world of English literature. The notable ones are Pincher Martin, that was published in 1956, and a play, The Brass Butterfly, in 1958, but none could excel The Lord of Flies. He was awarded with the Nobel Prize for Literature in 1983. He died in 1993, one of the most commended writers of the second half of the 20th century. The novel Lord of Flies tells an enchanting story of a group of English schoolboys stranded on a tropical island after their plane is gunned down during a war. Though the novel is fictional, its presenting the idea of human evil is at least partially based on Golding's experience with the real life violence and brutality of World War II. Away from the norms of civilization and society, the boys on the island in Lord of Flies fall into savagery. The group of boys gets split into factions. One group displays peace and violence, working in their own ways but towards common goals. Golding tries to depict two different tenets of the society. What are they? The primary human struggle between the humanizing instinct, the inclination to obey rules, behave morally and act lawfully. And the second one, the savage instinct, the urge to seek beastly power over others, act thoughtlessly, ridicule moral rules and indulge in violence. Two opposite poles. The simple and straightforward writing style in The Lord of the Flies makes the novel catchy and interesting. It is free from poetic language, lengthy descriptions and philosophical interludes. Much of the novel is symbolic that conveys the novel's central themes and ideas. The novel brilliantly captures the different responses of humans to stress, change and tensions. In the midst of the furious war, a plane evacuating a group of schoolboys from Britain is shot down over an abandoned tropical island. Two of the boys, Ralph and Piggy, find a conch and they use it as a horn to summon the other members of the group to assemble and find a quick way out to escape. Ralph displays good leadership qualities and is declared automatically as the leader. Jack is given the responsibility of hunting for food for the entire group. The trio, Ralph, Jack and Simon, team up and set off to explore the island. They light the fire to catch the attention of the passing ships. The boys, in a playful mood, forget to monitor the fire, and unfortunately this fire engulfs the whole forest. The youngest of the team suddenly disappears, presumably having burned to death. The boys enjoy their life playing games and in water. Ralph was conscious enough to maintain the signal fire and about building huts for shelter. Jack is too involved in hunting. When a ship passes by on the horizon one day, Ralph and Piggy realize that Jack, as a hunter, failed to keep the signal fires burning. Ralph is furious and criticizes Jack and Piggy, who also join in attacking Jack. Jack hits Piggy across the face. Ralph blows his conch shell and scolds the boys in a speech, asks them to restore the order. The younger boys of the group were experiencing nightmares, and they were under the illusion that there was a beast lurking around on the island. These little boys were known as little uns. The older boys tried to instill confidence in the younger ones, asking where such a monster could hide during the daytime. One of the little uns suggests that it hides in the sea, an idea that makes the whole group restless. Not long after meeting, the Sam and Eric, who were fast asleep, failed to notice military planes engaged in a battle high above the island. A parachutist drifts to earth on a signal fire mountain dead. The boys, in deep sleep, do not notice the parachutist land with a strange flapping noise, and the noise wakes them up. They see the huge silhouette and are terrified with their own imagination that the island beast is at hand. They rush back to the camp with the news that the beast has attacked them. The boys decide to go on a hunting expedition to search for the monster. The differences between Jack and Ralph widen the rift. Jack runs down the calling to call all the hunters to join them, and Ralph, with his group, builds a new signal fire, this time on the beach rather than on the mountain. Some boys slip from the Ralph's group and try to join Jack. Jack emerges as a leader, and so is slaughtered to solemnize the occasion and offer the same to appease the beast. Simon is terrified with his dream, where he sees a head speaking to him, and he imagines as the head of the Lord of Flies. Simon faints. When he wakes up, he goes to the mountain, where he sees the dead parachutist. Later, he realizes that the beast does not exist in reality, and there is a beast hidden in every human being. He musters strength to share his experiences with others and calm them down. But Piggy and Ralph were busy with Jack's feast, and the moment they saw Simon's figure, they do not recognize him and kill him, which symbolizes savagery. The discussion on the incident continues. The following morning, Ralph and Piggy are deeply involved in the discussion. In the process, Piggy is attacked by Jack's hunters, and some followers steal Piggy's glasses. Jack gets Sam and Eric tied up and fights with Ralph. In the continuing battle, one boy, Roger, rolls down a boulder down the mountain, killing Piggy and destroying the conch shell. Ralph barely manages to escape the attack of spears. Ralph hides for 2 days and others are after his life. Jack wildly asks to pull Ralph out of the hiding place. Soon, Ralph sees the sow's head and destroys it. Later, he is forced to come to beach despite knowing that he will be killed by other boys. While trying to escape, he is exhausted and he collapses. When he regains his consciousness, he is surprised to see a British officer standing over him. He tries to gather information on forest fire and is also surprised at the might of bloodthirsty group of savage children. He instigates Ralph to share the information and Ralph gladly does it. Ralph is overwhelmed by the knowledge that he is safe, but thinking about what has happened on the island, he begins to weep. The other boys also become emotional. The officer waits for the boys to become normal and to calm down. Let's get introduced to this character called Ralph. He's a robust and charming protagonist of The Lord of Flies. He displays strong leadership qualities while most other boys are concerned with playing and fun. Ralph constantly looks for alternatives to escape and maximize their chances of being rescued. Initially, Ralph impresses and influences other boys at the beginning of the novel. Later, the group succumbs to savage instincts and Ralph's hold becomes weak and Jack's position rises. Except Piggy, everyone joins the group for Jack's. Ralph is left alone to be hunted by Jack's tribe. Ralph's understanding of civilization and morality is mature and he wants to be eagerly a part of the civilized society. This also helps him to defend himself against Jack's hunters. At the initial stages of the novel, Ralph was unable to understand why the other boys succumbed to the savagery. The violent sights frustrated him. As the novel progresses, Ralph, like Simon, comes to understand that savagery is present within all boys. Ralph is all the more determined not to allow savagery to dominate him. Despite this wisdom, he could not resist himself from being violent and carried away by the thrill of it and participates unfortunately in killing of Simon. The realization that evil exists within him depresses him later. But this knowledge also prepares him to cast down the Lord of the Flies at the end of the novel. Ralph's story ends on a negative note. Although he is saved and returns to civilization, when he sees the naval officer, he weeps with the burden of his new knowledge about the human capacity for evil. Well, another interesting character is Jack. The conceited Jack in the novel strongly represents instinct of savagery, violence and the desire for power. In short, the contrast of Ralph. The desire for power in Jack is deep-rooted. With moral propriety, he tries to control the group as he was in a school. His savage instinct is ignited when he fails to kill a wild boar. He is obsessed with the idea of hunting and bloodshed. The more savage Jack becomes, the more he is able to control the rest of the group. By the end of the novel, Jack skillfully exploits the boys' fear of the beast to control their behavior, a reminder of how religion and superstition can be maneuvered as tools of power. The third character is Simon. Quite contrary to Ralph and Jack, who represent civilization and savagery, Simon symbolizes humanity and his deep connection with nature. The other boys are not innately moral, but the threat of punishment, the adult world, conditions them to embrace morality. In Golding's view, the human impulse towards civilization is not as strong as the human inclination towards savagery. That is, savagery attracts humans a lot. Unlike others, Simon acts morally because he believes in the inherent value of morality. He treats younger children with kindness, and he is the first to recognize the problem posed by the beast and the Lord of the Flies. That is, the monster on the island is not real physically, but lurks within each human being, an imaginary one. The sow's head on the stake represents this idea, as we see in Simon's vision of the head speaking to him. The novel highlights the inherent element of the evil within each human being, and the idea is also projected as the central theme of the novel. Though Simon represents human goodness, he is murdered by the other boys, which points towards the abundance of the evil in the society and within every heart of the human. Now let's look at interesting themes of this novel. The first one is civilization versus savagery. The central idea of The Lord of the Flies is the clash between two opposing impulses that exist within all human beings: the instinct to live by rules, act peacefully, follow moral commands, and the second one to be against them, to be in power. Throughout the novel, Golding associates the instinct of civilization with good and the instinct of savagery with evil. The conflict between the two instincts is the driving force of the novel, explored through the dissolution of the young English boys' civilized, moral, disciplined behavior as they accustom themselves to a wild, brutal and barbaric life in the jungle. Lord of the Flies is an allegorical novel, which means that Golding conveys many of his main ideas and themes through symbolic characters and objects. He represents the conflict between civilization and savagery in the conflict between the novel's two main characters. Who are they? Ralph, the protagonist, who represents order and leadership, and the second one is Jack, the antagonist, who represents savagery and a strong desire for power. As the novel progresses, Golding presents different reactions of people towards savagery and civilization. He also tries to prove that savagery is the basic instinct and is fundamental in humans. Piggy, for example, has no savage feelings, while Roger seems scarcely capable of comprehending the rules of civilization. According to Golding, moral behavior is imposed on human individuality. Given an opportunity, people would revert to cruelty, savagery and barbarism. This idea of inherent human evil is central to Lord of the Flies and finds expression in several key symbols, most markedly the beast and the sow's head on the stake. Among all the characters, only Simon seems to possess anything like natural innate honesty and goodness. Another important theme is loss of innocence. The boys on the island drift towards savagery from civilized behavior and become bloodthirsty hunters who do not wish to be human. They lose innocence and become barbaric, but Golding does not depict this loss of innocence as something that is done to the children. Rather, it results naturally from their increasing candidness to the inborn evil and savagery that has always existed within them. Golding is of the view that civilization can lessen but not erase innate evil that exists within all human beings. The forest glade in which Simon sits represents this loss of innocence. He discovers the bloody sow's head with spear upon a stake in the middle of the clearing. The bloody offering to the beast has disturbed the paradise that existed before, a significant symbol of innate human evil disturbing childhood innocence. Let's look at several allusions that made this novel interesting and rich. The first one is biblical parallels. Many critics have described Lord of the Flies as a retelling episodes from the Bible. While that description may be a sweeping statement, the novel does not resonate with certain Christian images and themes. Golding does not mention directly about Christian symbolism in Lord of the Flies. Instead, these biblical parallels prove to be subtle references in the novel, adding thematic quality to the main ideas of the story. The island itself, particularly Simon's glade in the forest, paints the picture Garden of Eden in its status as an originally serene place that is tainted by the introduction of evil. We may see the Lord of the Flies as representing the devil, for it works to spread evil among humankind. Furthermore, many critics have drawn strong parallels between Simon and Jesus. Simon's conversation with the Lord of the Flies also parallels the disagreement between the Jesus and the devil during Jesus' 40 days in the wilderness as narrated in the Christian Gospels. However, it is important to remember that the parallels between Simon and Christ are not complete and that there are limits to reading Lord of the Flies purely as a Christian allegory. Save for Simon's two uncanny predictions of the future, he lacks the supernatural connection to God that Jesus has in Christian tradition. The novel's biblical parallels augment its moral themes, but are not essentially the primary key to interpreting the story. The first one is the conch shell. Ralph and Piggy find a conch shell on the beach at the beginning of the novel and use it to grab the attention of the boys together after the crash separates them. Golding has used it as a powerful symbol to represent civilization and order in the novel. It indicates power and empowers the speaker to lead the team. It is also a vessel of political legitimacy and democratic power. As there is a gradual shift in boys from civilization to savagery, the conch loses its power to influence the boys. Ralph musters strength and confesses his role in Simon's murder. The boys try to murder Ralph when he tries to blow the conch in Jack's camp. The boulder aimed at killing Roger crushes the conch shell, signifying the end of the civilized instinct among the boys on the island. Second symbol is Piggy's glasses. Piggy is the most civilized and refined among all the boys in the group, and his glasses symbolize power of science and intellectual approach in the society. The boys use the lenses from Piggy's glasses to focus the sunlight and ignite fire. When Jack's hunters attack Ralph's camp and steal the glasses, the savages efficiently take the power to ignite fire, leaving Ralph's group helpless. The boys burn a signal fire on two places, the mountain and the beach, to attract the attention of passing ships and escape. As a result, the signal fire becomes a parameter of the boys' relation to civilization. The beginning of the story narrates that the boys maintain the fire and is a sign that they want to be saved and be a part of civilized society. When the fire burns low or is put off, we understand that the boys have lost control over civilized life and have embraced their savage lives on the island. The signal fire indicates the strength of the civilized instinct remaining on the island. Ironically, at the end of the novel, a fire finally summons a ship to the island, but not the signal fire. Instead, it is the fire of savagery. The forest fire Jack's gang starts as part of his quest to hunt and kill Ralph. Now let us look at the significance of the title, The Lord of the Flies. The name or the title, The Lord of the Flies, is a literal translation of the name of the biblical name Beelzebub, a powerful demon in hell, sometimes thought to be the devil himself. The Lord of the Flies is the bloody, severed sowe's head that Jack impales on a stake in the forest area as an offering to the beast. The frightening symbol becomes the most important image in the novel when the Simon tackles with the sowe's head in the forest, and he feels as if the head cautions him, telling him that evil lies within every human heart and promising to have some fun with him. In this way, the Lord of Flies becomes both a physical expression of the beast and a symbol of the power of evil, and a kind of Satan figure who evokes the beast within each human being. Now let us look at the 5 important people or the characters of the novel who contributed to the novel in their own way. The boys are Ralph, Piggy, Jack, Simon and Roger. Lord of the Flies is an allegorical novel, and many of its characters signify important ideas or themes. Ralph represents order and leadership and civilization. Piggy represents the scientific and intellectual aspects of civilized society. Jack represents unbridled savagery and the desire for power. Simon represents natural human goodness. Roger represents brutality and bloodlust at their most extreme. When we look at the whole story, to conclude, we understand that no human being is free from evil thoughts, but we are also blessed to control those evil thoughts and raise our standards and evolve as better human beings. And that was the wonderful message given by Golding to the human society. Thank you.